8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Davide Di Giorgio, a best-selling author, speaker, TEDx Speaker Coach, leadership coach, and an ambassador for creating unprecedented results for uncommon people like you. He's on a mission to tackle bullying and build self-confidence and self-esteem while funding dream projects for high school performing arts students and teachers. His book, being Unapologetic, became a bestseller in 10 countries. It's a lot of countries, and has received high praise from book lovers worldwide. David is also a contributing author in the Better Business book, Reach Your Greatness, and a featured writer for Success Profiles magazine and Life by Design magazine. In addition, David has done some incredible things and has some very impressive accolades that I could not possibly cover in this brief introduction. So without any further ado, David, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm doing fantastic, and I think you are too.
Yes, sir, I am, and I always am, and getting better by the minute. So let's jump right in. I want to know, what is your story?
Oh gosh, my story is, let's see. So I'm originally a composer. I'm a Canadian. So let's get that out of the way because people usually find that kind of a cute part of the story. I'm Canadian, born of Italian parents originally. And I started out as a composer. Well, not, as I didn't start out, but when I started doing what I was doing, I started as a composer, and I ran a successful theater production company for some time. And while I was doing that, I decided that I wanted to do some good in the world. So I thought, maybe I'll make my parents happy and become a teacher, because that's what they thought that I should do if I wasn't going to be a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. And so I became a head of a high school music department for about 10 years while I was running the theater production company. And then while I was doing all of that, I decided one day, I have a hole in my schedule. Why don't I open a yoga studio? So I was running all three of those things at the same time. So I'm one of these people who loves to say yes to opportunity. I see a great opportunity and I'm like, why not? If it's not going to hurt anybody or myself and it's not illegal, let's try it out. And so I've been very blessed to have a lot of amazing experiences. And then one day in 2011, my house was hit by lightning and burnt to the ground. Yeah.
Whoa.
And that caused for some reflection and to make some changes in life. And so I have since, I didn't really want to say slowed down, but I've shifted my focus into more what my purpose is and what I really want to do with my life. But yeah, that's sort of the Reader's Digest version.
So there's no way that we are not going to explore this door. Let's hear the story of the lightning. I want to talk about the other things in your past, but I definitely want to hear this lightning story.
So when I was a yoga studio owner, because it's totally connected, so things weren't going so well. We opened a yoga studio in the time when Groupon and Deal Find and all of these kinds of sites exploded. And, Groupon is great for Groupon. It doesn't always translate into great business for the business who uses it, simply because when there are so many good deals out there, it doesn't cause for a customer to want to have any, alliance or, to your business, and they'll just wait for the next deal. You also devalue yourself. And once you devalue yourself once as a business, it's difficult to get people to actually pay what you're worth. So anyway, we were struggling a little bit. So we decided to do the equivalent of a Groupon at the time. And again, this is not a slag against Groupon, but just telling the story. It was not going well. So essentially, I like to joke we were doing 17 cent a class yoga, because that's pretty much the reality of it, how it worked out. And we had $10,000 a month rent on the space. That's a lot of yoga that you need to do to cover your expenses. And we just weren't making it. So in January of that year, I started to I started to wonder, oh my gosh, have I made a mistake here? What would it be like if I could just start over? And every night before I went to bed, I was not feeling very well because I was working my teaching job. I was working the theater job. Well, not a job. I mean, that was my own business. And I had this yoga studio. And, basically my teaching salary went to pay the teachers who were working at our studio. And it was a mess. So every night for 6 months before I went to bed, I imagined, what would it be like if I could just start over? What would it be like if I could just like wipe that slate clean every night for 6 months? Then on June 4th, 2011, at 10:38 and 49 seconds in the morning, my house was hit by lightning. And it's funny, like, as I watched the house burn down, I was in the house, by the way, when it happened. And of course, there are no accidents because 10 days before the fire, I rented a room out in my house to make a little extra money to a firefighter who got us out. So as I'm watching the house burning down, and I'm literally taking photos, and I was obviously in shock. I was out of my mind. I realized, I thought, oh my gosh, I asked for this for 6 months. Every night I said, what would it be like if I could start over? What would it be like if I could just start from zero? And I forgot that detail in the secret that says you need to specify specifically what you want. And I got what I asked for. And I truly, truly believe that. And what was really cool in that moment, despite, it was a total loss. Like, I didn't lose my living room. I lost the entire house. I was lucky to get out. We lost everything inside. There was a total write-off. I realized, wait, if I could do that, what else can I do for good? And so that started this whole process of me really tapping into my own power and being intentional with what I want and what I think and what I feel to create something good for myself and for other people.
So for 6 months, you were asking for this, or maybe not specifically that, but you're asking for it to hit the restart button.
Mm-hmm.
And in 10 days before your entire house got hit by lightning, you rented out a room to a firefighter just randomly, and that firefighter got you out.
Yep. It's so crazy. And what was even more crazy was, there's so many crazy things about this story, but like that day, the firefighter wasn't supposed to be home. He was supposed to be at a training. I wasn't supposed to be home. We, as teachers, we did this street fair every year, street festival. And my teaching partner and I decided, we're going to take a year off. It's a lot of work and we're just going to take a year off. Well, it turned out to be one of the obviously major worst storms that we'd ever seen. There were 265 lightning strikes that day. And the only reason I know this is because when you go through an experience like this, it is a big deal. And CSI comes to your house and like geological surveyors come to your house. All sorts of crazy stuff happened. And they showed me the satellite image of all the lightning strikes. I have a copy of it, of all the lightning strikes that morning. They track where they hit. And they found, because they had to make sure, I mean, this sounds crazy, but they had to make sure I didn't burn my house down. And the way they do that is they check to see the records. And there was a lightning strike that it was a direct hit on my house at the exact, that's why I know the exact time, 10:38 and 49 seconds. So we were both home, thank goodness, because I have a dog. And at the time he was a crated dog. He had his own crate and I wouldn't have been able to save him if he was in the crate and I wasn't home. So it was just, everything lined up to be exactly the way it was supposed to be, so that no one was hurt in the incident. And, I was able to, I guess, learn the lesson from it.
Wow. That is incredible. And was that your dog, Galileo?
Yes.
Still your pup.
Still have him. Yep. He's going to turn 12 this year. He's snoring over here just to the side of the office.
What's up, Galileo? How you doing?
He's in La La Land dreaming of treats.
That's amazing. And so, wow. So after that moment, then you're like, okay, I have this ability. Like, I can channel this, but for good now. What did you do then? Like what were literally the next steps that you took?
So what's interesting when you go through a total loss like this is there's a lot of trauma involved. And so I wasn't able to actually act on the lesson right away because I was in shock. But I knew it. But what ended up happening is that, insurance companies get involved and it becomes a big deal. The whole thing becomes a very big deal.
Right.
And I remember the insurance adjuster, and I had great adjusters. They said, just in passing, like, you should maybe take some time off and not make any decisions. But, I had nothing anymore. I didn't own anything. I lost it all. And all I wanted was to get back into my own home, or a home. And so what I decided to do was obviously, rebuild. And that's a whole process. Like, I had to build a home from scratch now and work with builders and all that. So I put all of my energy into what I thought I was going to do was, I'm going to build a dream home, and I'm going to be able to, like, host my friends and all this stuff. Anyway, so I built the dream home, and it was a dream home. Like, it had, you push the button and the screen comes out of the ceiling, and, like, it was everything that you could ever want in a home. I had everything, right? And I was miserable. I was more miserable than I was when I had the yoga studio. And I thought, okay, hold on. What's going on here? And that's trauma, right? Like, when you don't give yourself the space to really heal.
Yeah.
And so I don't learn the first time. Apparently, I don't learn the second time, because then I sold that home, and I went to the West Coast. I bought a piece of property overlooking the Salish Sea and the Olympic Mountains, and I built another home from scratch. That one, I got about 2/3 of the way through the build, and I realized, what on earth am I doing here? Why? This is crazy to live by myself on this island here, So I sold that before finishing it. And then I decided, okay, I'm not going to make any decisions, because obviously I'm not fit to make decisions, because all I'm going to do is, like, go build homes or something ridiculous. So I decided to take a year and a half, and just travel. And the point was not, because I had already traveled quite a bit in my life. I had worked for hotels and resorts and airlines and stuff when I was younger. And I decided to just travel with the intention of meeting people, making no decisions, having no plan. So I took, like I said, about a year and a half. I did in that first year 150,000 flying miles, and I did 6 continents in that 1 year. I didn't do Antarctica because, who really needs to go to Antarctica? Although I will get there one day, but okay, at the time I was like, I don't like the cold. And I just, it's so funny, because just this morning I reposted something from someone online that says travel. And the reason you want to travel is because you'll see yourself in everybody around the world. And you'll recognize that we're all the same, and we all just want to live a good life. And yeah, it brought me back down to earth, all that travel. And it made me remember, like, there's people out there who just want to do well, do good in life. And it just grounded me. And so after that entire experience is when I decided, okay, well, where do I really want to be in my life? And so I decided to channel my new powers, my superpowers. When I was 16 years old, I came to San Diego on a high school band trip. I played clarinet and the piano. And I said, and I remember exactly where this happened. I said, one day when I was 16, one day I'm going to live here in San Diego. And so I started to channel that. It's like, well, maybe I could move to San Diego and live there, and maybe find my dream partner and set up a new life and just do what I wanted, because that's the place that I wanted to be. Well, here I am. I live in San Diego now, and I attracted my husband, and, I attracted this life by doing the same thing. I just thought about it every day. What would it be like? Okay, San Diego, that's where it's going to be, and here we are.
Wow. So the superpower is, like, focusing on the thing, and that thing coming into reality.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, I'm not, I don't go out there. I don't really talk about the law of attraction necessarily. I don't teach the law of attraction or anything like that. However, I think there is really something to be said for it, because, and there's a lot of pieces to it. Like, yes, you have to be obsessed about what you want, because when you look at this is what I do talk about when I'm speaking and stuff, is look at any of the greats out there, from it doesn't matter, from Jesus to Mother Teresa to Elon Musk to Richard Branson, whoever you think is great, they had an obsession. And that obsession manifests itself. And the other thing is you have to be detached from the outcome. Because when you push, I think what happens is you get into situations like you build 1, 2, or multiple dream homes and make yourself miserable when you push. Even the yoga studio was a push for me. It wasn't like I ignored red flags, right? So I think there's a difference between being obsessed, and you've interviewed some amazing, smart, successful people. And they would tell you too, is like, you have to be smart. Like in business, if it's not making money and you've tried it a couple different ways, maybe you just need to move on, because that's just a waste of time. And I just posted this on Facebook yesterday. You don't get a refund on the time that you waste. There's no refunds. So you're either going to move forward and try different things, or you're going to be stuck in where you're at, trying to manifest something that might not actually be the right thing. So I think it really does take some awareness of like, okay, what is working, objectivity, and what isn't working, being detached, and just saying, okay, yeah, put on your accountant brain, put on your attorney brain, put on your, human brain, and being like, okay, well, what works and what doesn't work, and how much time do I want to invest into something?
That seems like a very fine line of like, okay, I'm focused on this. I'm going to get obsessed with this. I'm just going to give it everything I've got. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, well, I know I need to iterate. I know I'm not going to succeed, probably not going to succeed on the first try. But then after a while, it's like, okay, I don't want to give up because I want to keep going because I have perseverance. But I also want to make sure that I'm deploying my time and investing my time in the right things. And maybe I just need to do a new thing. Like that's a very, very fine line.
Yeah. And how do you know? Like if Henry Ford had given up on the V8 engine, on the single cast V8 engine, because I think it was a year and a half before they actually figured it out. And he kept paying these engineers, who knows how many of them, right? Like, you're going to get it. And they kept coming back to him and like, Henry, we can't do it. Henry, we can't, for a year and a half. And he's like, you're going to do it. Don't you worry. You're going to do it. Imagine the investment. But I guess, those are the visionaries, the Elon Musks of the world. I love Elon Musk because he's just crazy enough to say things like, I want to die on Mars, just not on impact. And I'm like, okay, that's a visionary, right? Like, who says stuff like that? I mean, those are people who, but what I love is, recently I saw a CEO of a couple companies speaking at an event, and he put up a slide that everybody thought, oh my gosh, these are his businesses. Wow, amazing. And there were like, I think it was 14 logos of businesses. And then he said, these are all the businesses that failed. This is the one I almost went bankrupt on. This is the one I almost lost my wife over. This is the one that, I was like, I almost lost my sleep over all the time, and it was really interesting. And now he has these 2 or 3 that are super successful, but he had 14 that were train wrecks. And not a lot of people show that stuff. All the train wreck. More and more now, thank God, because of the internet and social media, people are being a little bit more authentic about that stuff, so that you and I, people, the everyday extraordinary people, can see as like, okay, I just got to keep going. Maybe they'll have another idea, or like you said, another iteration of something. But you're right. It is a fine line. It's like, I think if you can surround yourself with the right people, because that's the other mistake that I made, both in creating my disaster situation and what happened right after, is that I didn't tell people what I wanted or what I was doing. So one of the tips that I tell people when I'm working with TED speakers and it's similar is, if you want to get an idea out there, you have to tell everyone, like everyone. And that's where the obsession piece comes in. So if you're not telling everybody, you're never going to get your idea off the ground. Who's the famous quote? Actually, it's attributed to Bill Gates, but it's actually Warren Buffett who said, I just showed 1,200 people and 11 of them said yes. And that's what made me, a billionaire. So, okay. So whether you like the network marketing MLM model or not, there's so much power in the fact that, like, are you willing to get 7 no's to get 3 yeses, and listen to the counsel of the people who've done it before or something similar in your circle? Right. And so when you're telling people what you're up to and they're giving you feedback, and then the people that you trust, I mean, don't take advice from broke people. Don't take advice from people who are just trying to step on your dreams, because otherwise Disney World would never have come to life either. Right. When you surround yourself with people who are also visionaries, then you have a chance at bringing something to life that is, world changing, could have a positive impact on millions.
I totally agree. And I love to think of the people like your friends and family as like your power base. Like those are the people that they're going to love you no matter how many times you fail. And by the way, if they don't, then maybe they're not the right people to have in your life. But they're going to love you no matter how many times you've tried and failed. Look, I've failed many, 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 many times. And like some days I think, wow, I've made every mistake there is to possibly make. I've probably failed more than anybody on the planet. And then the next day I'm like, wait a second, there's a whole new level of failure awaiting in the future. What was I thinking? But anyways, the question that I have is, when you're telling everybody, right, and you're trying at something and you're focusing on something and you're telling everybody and you're excited, they're excited, everybody's excited, and then it doesn't work. And then you move on to the next thing. And then you go again and you tell everybody and you're excited and they're excited, but they're like, wait, what about that last thing? And you're like, don't worry about the last thing. Now we're focused on this thing. And then you get everybody in line. And that has to happen a couple times, or it may happen a couple times.
Right.
How do you make sure to retain the inner fortitude to not only get excited about the new thing yourself, but also to go to those same people again and again and again and be like, hey, that last thing didn't work, but now I'm doing this? Like, how do you keep that inner fortitude?
Well, here's the thing. And I think really it's the heart of my book, being unapologetic, is like, are you going to worry about what people think, or what people think about you, or are you going to just keep trying until you make a difference for yourself and for someone else? What I think the real key is, and this isn't necessarily for everybody, but for people like me who are empathic and who want to do good and give and all that kind of stuff, I think it's important that you are doing something that is connected to who you are. You're not just trying to sell widgets or whatever. Some people are great at selling widgets and they can figure it out and they can they can just print money, it looks like, right? But I would venture to say that even those people who make widgets, like, they're obsessed with whether it's making money or being able to solve little problems for everyday things. Great. That doesn't excite me. I don't want to solve everyday little problems. That's just me. And even though I know if I figured out how to solve a little everyday problem, okay, well, I could probably turn it into a business. Well, maybe I'm stubborn, right? I have a bigger platform that I want to create. But I think, like, it's just a choice. Are you going to be bothered by the opinions of others, by how you feel? Or, when I used to teach yoga, I used to tell people, your feelings have nothing to do with it. Because, you'd put someone into a pose like a warrior two and they're holding their arms out and, they're going on 2-3 minutes and they're like, oh my God, it hurts. It feels like I'm going to die. It feels like my arms are going to fall off. And I said, oh, well, your feelings have nothing to do with this, because the good news is, in 5,000-year history of yoga, no one's arms have ever fallen off. So what do your feelings have anything to do with it? You see, your feelings are lying to you. So what if instead you changed your feelings to like, oh, like, I'm doing this. I'm feeling sensations. My muscles are saying, oh my gosh, there's lactic acid. There's all sorts of scientific things that you could come up with to explain what's going on. And you could just like speak positively to yourself. This morning, I do a kickboxing workout thing, right? And it can be hard sometimes. And while I'm doing it, I'm reciting my own little, I call it a personal contract. I am an unapologetic, joyfully audacious, unmessable, and profitable speaker. I'm an unapologetic, joyfully audacious, unmessable, and profitable leader. Like that's what I'm saying while I'm punching the bag and my arms feel like they're going to fall off, because I know they're not going to fall off. But I'm like, okay, well, what if I give it one more? What if I give it one more? Right. And so I just choose to not worry about the failure. I mean, failure keeps it interesting. Failure is going to be your movie of the week. Turn your failure into like a television pitch for someone or a reality show, you know, or we can like be miserable and worry about it. And it's just a choice. And we're so blessed in the world that we live in to, most of us can make that choice. And, you know, it's so funny. Like even people who don't have a lot, I've been to some parts of the world where they have nothing. They have literally nothing. They are some of the most happiest people in the world, but they have made the choice to celebrate what they have as opposed to obsess over what they don't have. And I think there's something to be said for that. Like if you can celebrate what you have, where you're at, I'm celebrating that I'm excited about this right now. Yeah, it's opportunity number 17, friends. Okay, you think I'm like, whatever they're going to come at you with. Okay, great. But here's the thing. Again, pick your favorite visionary. And they had this obsession, unstoppable, unmessable factor to them. Like, you know, I grew up Catholic. So I think Jesus is a great example for anybody. Because imagine, not only does he have a best-selling book 2,000 years later that he didn't even write, he did it with 12 people. He had 12 people in his downline, you know, and he did it hanging out with the cesspool of society. That is extraordinary. And whether it's real or not or whatever, the fact of the matter is, if we're still talking about it, there is a lesson there. So, and this was a guy who walked around saying things like, I am. People would say, oh, you think you're this and that. And he'd like, I didn't say that. You said that. And he just kept it all about his message, which was love, 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 or whatever, right? And this isn't about religion. I'm just saying it's such a great example. That's like, okay, if you really believe in something, and then you get a couple of people to believe in what you believe, you could change the world. So, and most of us don't even bother getting a couple people who believe in what we believe. And so Apple isn't created when we don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, Steve Jobs had a couple of people who really believed in him, right? For a time, because obviously the relationships then dissolved for a time, and look at what he was able to do with that. So again, it just comes down to choice. What are you going to focus on? What do you decide that you're going to waste your time on in this life? Because at the end of the day, it's terminal. The decision is that it's all going to be over eventually. So in the time that you do have, what do you want to do with it? And I choose to just celebrate what I have and just keep moving forward and being excited, because when you get excited, other people get excited. And if it doesn't work, so what? You had a good time. But it might lead you to that next person or that next thing that will lead you to the thing that is the miracle, you know, that you're waiting for.
Let's talk about when you were traveling and you saw these other cultures, other places, and they were celebrating what they had versus what, instead of focusing on what they didn't have. Like, what was that actually like? I mean, what were those experiences actually like?
For someone who grew up in, you know, first world, I never had to worry about anything. I went to school. I had multiple degrees. I had everything I could ever want. I had a car when I was, you know, in college and all that stuff. It was like confounding, because I'm like, okay, hold up. So my first year teaching, I took 16 students to Cuba. As Canadians, we have the privilege of being able to travel at that time to Cuba. And in Cuba, Cubans in general, unless you're very wealthy, you're not allowed to own a car. They share a phone, like maybe 10 people shared a phone. No laptops, like they would share a computer for a whole block of people. And I was like, are you kidding me? And they were dancing in the street. Like they were like 8-year-olds who were professional salsa dancers. Forget Dancing with the Stars. They were in Cuba. Like it was amazing. And they were kids. and the joy that would come out of them and the love with which they would greet you or talk to you, or you go to a local restaurant and just the love that went into the food that was being made. I was astounded. It doesn't even compute in my head. In Zimbabwe, we were crossing the bridge from Zimbabwe to Zambia, seeing Victoria Falls on both sides, which was an amazing experience. And there were the equivalent of what you might hear, say were homeless people who were living on the streets. Well, they don't beg. Instead, they come up to you and they say, hey, I have this band. I have an elastic band. Can I trade you my elastic band for your water bottle? And I'm like, dude, you can have the water bottle. I don't need your elastic band. Right. But they would not have it. They're like, no, you must take the elastic band. And I thought that is really extraordinary. I mean, I live in San Diego, which is a homeless population. It's a shame. It's 9,000 plus homeless population right in the area where I live. Mm-hmm. And some people get it and some people don't. Some people, if you don't give them a handout, like who cares? Let's be honest. I mean, this is my entertainment. Sometimes it's like, who carries cash anymore? I'm like, we need to get like homeless people, unfortunately, like a Stripe or something, because I don't carry cash, like it's unfortunate. And so I feel bad if I forget to bring change along with me, but and when you don't give it, sometimes once in a while, like you'll get cussed out. And I'm like, my gosh, whereas in Africa or other places in the world that I've been, Thailand, Laos, Bali, they will trade, they will give you a compliment even or something. Right. And I'm like, it's so interesting. Maybe the first world has caused us to feel so entitled, or what, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's just been interesting. Like when you travel, you just see real humanity. And so I encourage everybody to travel more. It doesn't matter if you're just travel to the next town and talk to people, and you'll see that, we're all the same, but at the same time, there's little differences in different communities that you're like, maybe I should be a little bit more like that. So now, I don't flat out ask people for anything. I'm like, okay, well, what if I do this for you? Would you like to do this for me? One of my mentors recently shared a little video that says, try this. When you're talking to someone and you first meet them, work in authentically, if you mean it. I mean, they're talking and they share something. You say, oh my God, that's awesome. I like you. And see what happens when you tell someone that you like them. Not in a creepy way, but just like, because now you've given something, and they might be more open to giving something back, making a connection, sharing something that might be your next big thing, whatever, right? But a lot of us don't think that way because we're so focused on what we're doing that we don't think like, oh, if I want to do, I think it was Jim Rohn who said, or there's a couple people who said, if you want what you want, you have to give. You have to give to other people what they want first. And when you've served enough people, you'll have what you want. That's hard. We get everything handed to us. We open the computer and there's our internet. There's everything that we need right away. Now, give it to me now. Something goes wrong with the business. Give me my refund now. We get results fast. And with life doesn't actually work that way. We created that. Like, you have to plant the seed before you can harvest, but we just want the harvest. And people aren't willing to plant the seed. So that's kind of weird. Whereas in other parts of the world, I think because they're still connected to agriculture, they're still connected to the land, they recognize good things take time. And so, okay, there's an exchange here. You want your crop to grow, you have to water it. So here's my rubber band for your water bottle. It's the same thing, right? We've forgotten that. We're just like, oh, I opened my laptop. Give me this. I need change. I need to buy this. Well, okay. Are you willing to do something to buy that? Like, do you like my hair? Like what? Give me something. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So I want to keep going with your narrative, but I want to talk about this idea of we have this, and clearly it's a general statement. So I don't think everybody's like this in the United States, but I would agree with you that we more as a society are impatient and we're like, we want it now. And there is some sense of entitlement. And, let me be the first to say, I'm sure that I'm guilty of it too. I'm sure that I'm guilty of it too. Do you think that that is going or is already causing problems for us that like other places aren't going to have? Like, are we going to see problems for that? What are the repercussions going to be for that type of thinking?
Well, I think, it's funny. Like, in what I like to joke is the Walmartization of the world. And nothing against Walmart. I mean, I visit Walmart and whatever, but there seems to be this movement of moving back to, street markets are more popular now, and the little mom and pop shop, and right, those are starting to come back a little bit more. Not everywhere, but in some places. And I think when we look at, like, look, we're tourists here. And if we look at what has been here before we got here, and we're extraordinary, technology is amazing and all of this stuff, but we don't need to recreate the wheel. Fact of the matter is, all the lessons and all the wisdom that we need is demonstrated to us in nature, in the world, and how it all works in the natural world. And those lessons of, like, things take time and you can't rush certain things, and there's just a natural order to things. And I think if we're constantly looking for the shortcuts, yeah, I think there can be shortcuts, but I mean, what's the rush? Like, seriously, what are we in a big rush for? Like, we're all rushing to die. And then people, like, just to use the example, okay, so I had $1 million. Great. I was absolutely miserable because all of a sudden now I had $1 million and everybody was like, oh, wow, let's hang out with David. Let's go check out his place. But there was no real, relationships. So I really resonate, because I've worked in entertainment for a long time, with these people who become super, super successful. And like, I just want to go to the mall without having, like, an entourage, like, I'm just a person. And like, it's really interesting. I think that the problem is that we're all in a rush. And I'm asking, I'm 43 now. It's like, what are we in a rush for? Like, there's no point, because in an instant, like lightning, you could lose everything. And then what? So what are you really building? All that really matters is the experience you have with the people that you have those experiences with. We have the ability to make someone's day. We have the ability to positively impact. Now, if you do that through business, through enterprise, through giving, through whatever means, do that. Spend time with people, because let me tell you, at the end of the day, once the 4 fire trucks and 27 firefighters and the insurance adjuster leaves, I was left by myself looking at a smoldering home. There was no, and I was like, now what? I didn't even know who to call. I had no idea who I was going to call, because I was so busy with all the things that I was doing, rushing to success. I don't know what, rushing to make it, that all of a sudden, in the moment where I needed to call someone, I had no idea. And I literally stood there for 15 minutes scrolling through my phone thinking, am I going to be a bother if I call this person? Am I going to be a bother if I call that person? That's insane. But that's where we're at.
Wow.
And that's not cool. Like, that's not the way I want to live my life. I don't think anyone should live their life that way.
So how do you break that? How do you break that cycle?
Well, you pay attention to the people around you, and recognize that, look, even if you have a great business idea, the truth of the matter is, if nobody wants it, if you have nobody to help you, it's not going to become successful. Disney was amazing, had amazing ideas. If nobody went to Disney World, it would shut down. It's that simple. If people didn't want to work there, it would shut down. End of story. Okay, so wait a minute. It all comes down to people. Doesn't matter what technology, even with AI and all this stuff, someone has to make the stuff, someone has to fix it, someone has to innovate it, right? So if you don't have people around you, what's the point of any of it? If you make millions of dollars, let's say, or whatever is the definition of success for you, and you go home by yourself every night, maybe you want to, but we're not designed to be alone. We want to have people around us. and to enjoy that time. So I think when you place the focus on people, so I always say, Simon Sinek, amazing, brilliant thought leader. And he came out, his TED talk went viral, and then the book Start With Why. And then several years later, nobody actually understood. What are you talking about, Simon? I don't know how to start with why. Because here's the issue. When you ask someone, what's your why? You're like, what is my why? I don't know what my why is. And you're stuck in this what why loop, right? So then he wrote another book, Find Your Why, which got a little bit more specific. And in Find Your Why, he talks about, and I actually didn't read Find Your Why until after I wrote my book, because in my book, what I say is you have to start with who you are. You arrived into this world programmed a certain way with your DNA. When you pay attention to who you are, you will reveal why you are who you are, and then what you want to do with that after. And that's what he says in that book. He explains is like, if you want to find your why, you have to look at who you are. Go back and look at your life, pick up the breadcrumbs of your life, and how did you react and respond when you were a kid? When something good happened, bad happened, ugly happened, what is your filter on the world? And when you focus on who you are, and then you recognize, we're all just trying to be who we are, you can build community around that. And I think it just changes the motivation. Because if you're doing something because of your spouse or your partner or your kids or your community, I want to give back, I want to do good, I want to be of service for the world, I think it's different than I just want to get success or whatever. Because you're going to get to success and you're going to be like miserable. There's like, yeah, you're going to have what you want maybe if it's money driven, but so what? If you don't have anyone to hang out with, it's not a fun life. Or if you get to the point where you get, Michael Jackson size success, then you can't even, like, how many people can you hang out with? So that really messes people up too.
I love the concept of you have to figure out who you are before you figure out why you do what you do, what's important to you, how you're going to do it, and all that stuff. And of course, I say all that stuff. Those things are very, very important too. Yeah. Not trying to diminish the importance of that. When it comes to figuring out who you are, I feel like that is a very, very, very difficult thing to do because there are so many layers to a person. Like when I think about it, when I think about myself, for example, there's like a layer of like who I am fundamentally at my core. Mm-hmm. There's the layer of how I've been raised, right? There's the people that I've come in contact with, my community, the advertising that has influenced me, like my friends, and there's so many different influences, all of which have been to some level internalized. And then that's constantly happening because I'm alive. And so, always more things are coming in. I'm reading books and, talking to extraordinary people like you. And so there are all these things going, right? So how do you, and I'm asking, how do you specifically figure out, okay, what's really me? What are these influences? Okay, good. Now I have that. Like, how do you actually identify that?
So it came to me that, and the way you just asked this is so beautiful because it really illustrates it perfectly. There's who you are, and then there's all these other things. The influences, the way you were raised, the experiences that imprinted things onto you are not who you are. So there is who you are and how who you are reacts, responds to situations, internalizes. But the situations and everything on the outside, from your parents to advertising, is not who you are. Who you are is how you react and respond. Now, maybe you are someone who realizes, I'm very influenced by the outside world. And that's okay. But then you have to make a choice. It's like, if I'm very influenced by the outside world, now what do I want to do with that? Right? why are you influenced by the outside world? Maybe there was an event that caused you to not trust yourself or whatever. That's not who you are, though. You see what I mean? Like, so it's getting back to, so as they say, success leaves clues. Who you are leaves clues all along the way. But many of us are not willing to look back at our lives and recognize the clues. And so I take clients through this process called the Everyday Extraordinary Storytelling book, where basically you document your life. And it's not something you'll ever finish, but it's something that you start and you just keep going and doing it. And you document what I call them are incidents. Oh, I remember the time when my brother and I, my sister, my parents, we were out and this happened. A client of mine, she said to me, she says, I don't know how, because, I help people to discover, develop, and deliver TED-worthy ideas and big ideas. She said, I don't know how this is going to help, but anyway, on my list are things like, I realize I could teach somebody how to brush their teeth. Okay. She was very particular that way. And so I said, oh, that tells me a lot about you actually. And I said, let me ask you, are you very, very detail oriented? And she said, oh my God, so detail oriented. I'm like, okay, well, that's part of who you are. It's not about the incident itself. It's about, well, what does that mean? Put another way, when I taught high school, as kids got into their senior year, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know what. And where they made the mistake is they're like, well, I really like science. I should probably become a doctor. And so I would say, I think you're missing the point here. Instead of that, why don't you look at science? What is it about science class that you like? And they'd say, ooh, I like the experiments. I said, okay, so you like trying things new. You like proving hypotheses. Right? So it's not about the science class. Or I really like phys ed, but I don't want to open a gym. They'd say to me, and there's no course in college for that. And if I don't go to college, they're going to kill me. What do you like about gym? Okay, physical activity. I like helping my friends get better. Oh, well, maybe there's physical therapy. There's all sorts of different things that you could do, right? So I think people get stuck that this thing happened to me, so that's who I am. This is how I react to this ad or whatever. This is who I am. No. That's just information for you. Now you have to sit and reflect. This is how I react and respond to different things, different people, different situations. What does that actually mean? And sometimes you can't do it yourself. Sometimes you need a coach, a friend, a mentor, whatever that is. And other times, and that's really one of the reasons why I wrote Being Unapologetic is because I was working that out for myself. And now the people who have read it all over the world are starting to really understand is oh, I get it. I have been who I am since I was a baby. Period. And you'll see when you look back, I've been outspoken since I was a kid. It's just who I am. So I can't be a wallflower. I can't be an employee. I just can't. I can for a short amount of time and then I expire out of it because I have something bigger I want to do. And I've been like that since I was in kindergarten and even before. So why fight it? Now I could ignore it and just keep going back into the corporate world or whatever, but that's not going to serve you. So again, point is go look at the incidents in your life and ask yourself, how did I react and respond? What did I make that mean? What does that reveal about me? And I think people will get closer to, I know you'll get closer to figuring out who you are. And in that little bonus is that you'll figure out your idea, your message that you want to share with the world. And when you start speaking from who you are, holy cow, do things change. Well, that's the Henry Ford, the Jesus, the Grant Cardones of the world, the Gary V's of the world. Everyone's like, oh my God, he's so amazing. I'm like, Gary V's just being himself. There's nothing extraordinary. What is extraordinary is that he knows who he is and he's absolutely unapologetic about it. And he shows up himself, period. And that goes for every extraordinary person that you've ever met in the world. They just are unapologetically themselves. And people are like, I like that person. I'm going to follow that person because I know what I'm going to get when I follow that person because they're the same. This is what they believe. This is what they say. I'm going to follow that person. And look, I think the best example, and if we keep politics out of it, I think it's very important that we're able to analyze. So the current presidency, right? And even the past, any presidency, is an incident. And when we look at the incident, what we have to understand is whoever the person in power is, somehow, some way, there was enough support that that person was the chosen one. And we have to pay attention. Why? Well, and I think, and like I give myself the outside, I'm Canadian, I'm not super political, and I can't even vote because I'm only a resident. I think why is because President Trump, this time around, he was just the most consistent with his message and unapologetic. Like as a Canadian, I was like, I would say to my husband, babe, like he wants to build a mall, right? Because that makes sense to me. I mean, he's a businessman, right? And he's like, no, he wants to build a wall. I'm like, but no wall has ever really worked in history. I'm not sure that that's the best, this is just my brain, trying to process it. But the fact of the matter is, doesn't matter because he was consistent and he was unapologetic. He's like, that's what I want. That's what I believe. And people follow. So what can we learn from that? Now, just imagine if, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's the same with like the negative leaders of the world, the ones who've done extreme harm to millions of people. The fact of the matter is they got people to follow them because they were being unapologetic of who they were. And when you are that, you become powerful and people follow you. So imagine the power that you have. You can burn your house down or you can go do good things for people. It's a choice that you have to make. And it's the same thing with power. So if you are consistent in who you are and you show that vulnerably, authentically every day, you can do great things.
When you look back into your life, and we've talked about this a little bit, and we talked about it a lot of bit with the lightning, and I think that was one of the pivotal moments. But what were some of the other pivotal moments in your life that really gave you insight into who you are or who you are?
So there was a time in 2009 where I decided living in the Arctic was going to be a good idea. So I moved to the Arctic. And to make a long story short,
what do you mean? What do you mean by the Arctic?
I mean like the Arctic, like north of the Arctic Circle. That's where I lived. Like it was minus 76 degrees one day.
Oh my goodness.
That I visited. It was cold as all get out. I thought that would be a good idea. I could rediscover myself in the Arctic. Okay. Remember, I said yes to opportunity. So, okay, here I am in the Arctic. Everything's going terribly wrong. I was house sitting, and I was house sitting for people who were traveling, and they had a Pomeranian named Toby. Toby had an ulcer. Toby was giving me an ulcer. We were not friends. I mean, this is ridiculous. Toby's owners, if you're out there, Toby was awesome. Just wait for the end of this little incident. It's great. One day, I mean, Toby bit me. I still have a scar. Toby locked the door on me. Somehow he like pushed the door shut with his nose and I was locked out. Had to call like the neighbors. It was a train wreck. One day, I said, I had a come to Jesus moment with Toby. I said, Toby, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to love everything out of you. I'm just going to like pour love into you and you're just not even going to know what happened because we can't carry on like this because one of us is going to end up dead and it's not me. So I went to bed and I had Galileo with me too. Okay. So I woke up the next morning and it was like, oh my God, Toby, it's so great to see you. How are you doing? Right. Okay. By 3:00 that afternoon, I'm not even joking. There I am. Galileo's curled up in my lap and Toby's curled up in my lap and he's giving me like dog love, giving me little kisses. And I thought in that moment, oh my gosh, I am the problem in my life. If I can change how I show up for an animal, well, this probably works on people too. So I had moved to the Arctic because I thought I had no friends and all this stuff or whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I can change me. I can't change anybody else. I can't change Toby. I can change me. And when I change me, ultimately I changed Toby, which was the weird thing. So it was like the back way into this whole thing. So that was like a huge revelation moment for me. And I've taken that lesson to heart and forward in my life in so many other places. And one other very quick little incident that happened just shortly after that in 2009 is I came out to my family, my biological parents, and they disowned me instantly. And the lesson was, and I knew, I waited till I was 33 to do it. And I knew, that's why I waited. And what I learned was family is what you define it to be. So I had to go through this process. It took me about a year to redefine what family meant for me. Now I have lots of family. I got kids all over the place. I got parents in Arizona. I got people who want to adopt me all over the place. Family is just what you believe family is. So that was another big one. And you can create family wherever you want. It's just your choice, you know.
So after all of these things, who are you?
I am an unapologetic, joyfully audacious, unmessable, and profitable speaker, leader, husband, an amazing human who's up to big things, who wants to just show other people what it looks like to be themselves. Because the faster you can be yourself, the faster you're going to get to the good stuff. Like you're waiting for something to happen. And the secret is you arrived with that thing. Wayne Dyer, the late amazing Wayne Dyer, said something that really impacted me. He said, the first 9 months of life, when you were inside mom, the first 9 months of life are unprecedented and abundant. You, as a fetus, receive abundance. That's all. You surrender and you receive. Why then does that need to change at the moment of our birth? He says we work too hard. We come into this world and we think we need to do and work for it and this and that. What if you surrender? Now, look, I understand. I'm not saying you can sit on the couch with your bag of potato chips and just expect and manifest and whatever, right? Yeah, you do have to put some energy out and work, obviously, but like, let who you are be the thing that guides you and allows other people, let who you are be the beacon for other people to follow you. Because maybe you are meant to be the next president of the United States or something else, but you're not letting yourself be who you are because you're stuck in, I got to do this, to do this, to do this, to do that. No, you don't. You are a miracle, no matter which way you look at it, from a God perspective, from a science perspective, if you believe in unicorns, whatever, you are a miracle. So that tells me, if we are a miracle, that you can create miracles. So what are you waiting for? Show up and create miracles.
Wow. I love that.
Thank
I
you.
think it's amazing. I really do.
Thank you.
Because it seems like the more, well, let me back up and say, I actually had a very powerful moment that I'd like to share with you.
Please.
Probably about four or five Sundays ago. It had come after a time when, at this time, about a month ago, my grandma passed away on my dad's side, about 11 months prior. Then about 3 weeks before that, my dog died, and I'm a huge animal person. Like, your dog is your family.
Yeah.
And then that very week, my other grandma died. And it was just like, and I moved in that time. So it's just like, bam, 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 and so that it gives you a lot of perspective. Death gives you a lot of perspective. And so I really sat down, and I'm Jewish. And so, people of the book, people of the scroll, right? So I literally sat down with this big roll of paper. You can just keep rolling it and you can keep writing. And I sat down for literally 5 hours, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I wanted to figure out, what is my purpose? I wanted to get refocused on it and like just dive deeper and understand myself fundamentally at a way better than I did before. And so after 5 hours, the conclusion that I came to is that I'm on a journey of continuous self-discovery in order to more authentically express myself to the highest and fullest level. Like, after 24 years of life and 5 specific hours of writing, that is the conclusion that I arrived to. And it sounds like we're kind of saying similar things here.
Yeah, because what I just heard you say is, I'm on a journey to discover who I am and to show that, to be that for others. I don't know what it is. it doesn't even matter, but that's what it is. Right. And yeah, absolutely. You got there at 24. Took me a few more years to get to that. So I applaud you and celebrate you for that. And that's the other thing is like, I hope you celebrate that every day, because I don't think, I'm about to start this thing, 122 days of celebration in my business and my tribe. And it's like, I don't think we celebrate enough. Right. So that's a major, major thing. And when you celebrate, you feel good. And when you feel good, it like attracts more good. Instead of like, oh, I don't know. Like you could have said, I wrote for 5 hours and I'm not 100% sure. Like I don't really have it. I don't know what my purpose is. Stop asking what. It's the wrong question to ask. Who cares what? What the answer to what is whatever you want. What's your purpose? Whatever you want. And I learned this from the ridiculous musical Avenue Q. There's a song that says, everything is just for now. For now. Your hair, taxes, the president, it's all for now. So for now, what do you want to do? Do that. Be that. Change it. Who cares? And if people are like, oh my gosh, you got another idea. I'm like, heck yeah, I do.
That's right, I do.
Right? Yeah. I used to have a mentor. He used to say, it's like, at the end of my life, I just want to be used up. I want to be able to pass away and be like, there's nothing left. Like I wrung myself out like a rag. There is not a drop left. Use it all up. I love that. Right. And so the way I translate that is like, celebrate everything. Just celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. I mean, when I was watching my house burn down, I was celebrating like, oh, I understand. Got it. I did that. Okay. So I had to celebrate that. I could have been like, oh my God, I did that. This is terrible. And I could have recluded and all that. Not useful. We only have a certain amount of time. You do not get a refund. So start using the time. Use it all up,
I'd also like to point out that another great line from Avenue Q, because I'm an avid Broadway person. I love plays and shows. Is the part early on when the main character or one of the main characters says, "Purpose is that little flame that lights a fire under your ass." 100%. I think that's a great quote.
Yeah, ridiculous musical, but there are so many great lessons in it. And it's just so beautiful, so beautifully done. Because it's just like, and it's perfect for that 20 to 30 crowd, because we all go through that in our 20s. Like, I don't know, what's my purpose? What am I doing? I'm living in a little crappy apartment here or whatever. Right. And it's like, fantastic. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your book. I want to know, how exactly did you come to that title?
So being unapologetic is, make no mistake, a reminder for myself, because I spent my whole life being the opposite, being very apologetic for who I am, not being real, apologizing for my existence, apologizing for being too loud, too much of a leader, too whatever. And I came to a point one day where I thought, wait a minute, what if I was unapologetic? Not in a FU way, right? But in a way that it's like, this is who I am. I can't change your opinion of me, and that's okay. I still respect you and love you no matter what, but this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And when I started being unapologetic, everything changed for me. Well, that's how I attracted my husband to being unapologetic, because when we first met, the first thing I said, and we met online on OkCupid, plug for OkCupid, I said, he sent a beautiful message and I said, great, wonderful, amazing. You sound great, but I just want to be very clear. I'm Canadian. So read between the lines. I'm not looking for some like long distance dating thing. Like the only way that we can really be together is if we get married. So I'm looking for a husband. That's how unapologetic I was. Well, here we are. He had no problem with that. But imagine if I was just kind of like, tiptoeing, on the eggshells and not being myself. Like I found every time when I am unapologetic about who I am, other people follow me. I can create the relationships I want. I can create the business that I want. And so it's a reminder to myself. And I want other people to understand how to tap into being unapologetic for themselves so they can become influential speakers and visionary leaders that they want to be.
Why the speakers and leaders? Why is that important to you?
Well, we arrived in this world speaking. So I've worked with performers, presenters, speakers my entire life, first in musical theater, then in all sorts of different, across multiple industries. And what I realize is, there's this whole thing is like, oh, I want to be a public speaker. I'm like, as opposed to what? You want to be a private speaker? Do you speak by yourself? Like, it makes no sense to me. We arrive in this world as speakers. And if we want to get anything done, you want to bring a vision to life, you have to speak. When you are speaking one-on-one with someone, you are a speaker. So that's the speaker part. And the leader, like, again, speakers lead. When you speak, one mentor of mine says, when you speak, business happens. And it's so true. If you don't speak, nothing happens. When you speak, business happens. And when business happens, whatever that may be, you become a leader. And all of us, to different degrees, are leaders. You might be the leader of your own pet only, and that's great, but you are a leader. You might be the leader of your family. You might be the leader of a group outing with your friends. You might be the leader of a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. We are all leaders to some degree. So I think it really is the core of who we are. We're all speakers. We're all leaders. Now, if you're being unapologetic as those things, we can really get into business.
That's huge. That's huge. And I also think even if nobody is following you right now, you still have to lead yourself.
Heck yes. 100%. And let's just talk about the whole followers issue. Lisa Nichols, one of the women who wrote The Secret, amazing motivational speaker, extraordinary human being. She says, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting to be liked? You sitting there on social media waiting for the likes to come in? Well, guess what? I woke up and liked myself today. Your like is extra. My job is to like me first. I love that quote. She said it in an interview. It's so good. What are you waiting for? Like, lead yourself. What do you want to do? You have a miracle opportunity. What are you going to do with it? Or are you just going to waste the time?
Wow. So I want to talk about a subject that it's kind of a difficult subject to talk about, I would imagine. And, I want to make sure I ask it respectfully in order to respect you completely, 100%.
Be unapologetic, man.
But I want to talk about when you had that conversation with your family.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide that was the right time? Why then?
So part of it is, I, as you can tell, I like humor. Part of it was humorous for me. I was 33 years old. I was living in the Arctic. And I thought, well, 33, age of Christ. Big things happen at the age of Christ. I mean, that's just my humorous side. I could no longer. So I came out to them right after the Toby Pomeranian incident, because I realized if I'm the problem in my life, that means I can also be the solution. I could no longer carry the burden of not being myself. I just felt completely inauthentic. They didn't even know where I was. They didn't know what I was doing. They didn't know anything about my life. They knew what I kind of told them, what I filtered. And I'm like, that's just not fun. No way to live. So I was just done with the burden. And, I struggle with it even to this day, because some people are like, well, why are you going to tell them something that they do not want to know? Why don't you just let them live in bliss? And maybe, I don't know yet. I don't know the answer if what I did was selfish or not, because I knew what the reaction was going to be. It was very clear. But I couldn't be myself if I wasn't myself with the people who brought me into this world. I just couldn't. It was such a burden. So I told them in the most respectful way that I could, with no blame, no shame. I just kept it open, and they, they were true to who they were, and their understanding, they're not bad people. It's just not in their understanding. So I have to respect and applaud them for sticking to what they believe at the end of the day. This year will be 10 years that I haven't heard from them. And I have to respect that. And that's okay. Sometimes we don't get to choose the families we're born into, but we get to choose the families that we identify with. And so I was given that blessing. And maybe the blessing that I'm supposed to share with other people is that, that idea that your biological family isn't the be all end all. There are so many people who are waiting to treat you maybe even better than your family does. Maybe. Why close off the idea that that is your family, right? I mean, and what I love about the Jewish culture so much, so you'll find this entertaining, Ben. When I was my first year of college, I went to work at one of the big 5 Jewish camps in Ontario. And I'll never forget when the camp director said, I just want to make sure. Have you ever worked at a Jewish camp before or been immersed in Jewish culture? And I'm like, I've traveled around the world. This is a piece of cake. Nothing could have prepared me for that summer. What I recognized and realized was like, this is a different culture. It is so fascinating to me. And you in the Jewish culture have a different definition of what family and support is. Because in general, and again, this is a generalization, right? So, but in general, what I observed that summer is that everybody was family.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a different level of support that I was like, how come the Catholics aren't taking lessons from this? Like, I was just like, what? The Catholics, we would sit in our cabin by ourselves and play Yahtzee or whatever, like while everyone else was hanging out because they were family. And I'm like, this is so fascinating to me. So family is just, what you make of it in your mind. And so it's just been an interesting journey understanding that as I go on through my own journey in life.
Was your relationship with them strained before? I mean, I know you were talking about having to filter and, they didn't really know where you were, but was it always like that?
Yeah. It was a pretty strained relationship my entire life. And to be honest, it was just because I wasn't being unapologetic of who I am. Like I literally, when you aren't who you are, you're robbing yourself of the freedom involved when you're just being yourself. You're also robbing other people of the true authentic experience of you. So my whole life growing up was not necessarily authentic, because I was hiding. And for a lot of years, I didn't even know who I was at all. I didn't know my sexuality until I was older. I was a late bloomer because I just didn't think it was possible, right? Because that was the programming. That was the imprint that I had on me. That's not normal. You don't do that, right? So I'm like, okay, but I'm struggling with this. So, like it was tricky for me growing up.
Yeah.
It was very difficult as a teenager. And I was severely bullied throughout school, throughout high school. So, that was weighing very, very heavily on me. But yeah, it was a very inauthentic, I just wasn't myself ever, pretty much ever. And it spilled over into all of my relationships, all of my friendships. I wasn't ever really myself with anybody, let alone myself. I was too scared to tell myself who I was. It affected everything.
So then when you made the commitment to yourself to be unapologetic, I mean, it was probably like this humongous weight was just lifted, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm not going to say that, all of a sudden angels start singing when you make the decision, but it is a process. Like every day you have to be committed to it, which is why I say to myself every day, I am an unapologetic ... I remind myself every single day, because if I stray from who I am, well, then what do you have left? What? I don't want to be someone for you and someone for someone else and a different person. It's so complicated. I just want to be myself. And it is a daily process, a daily opportunity to celebrate who you are. And people pay attention, whether they click the like button or not, they're paying attention. And it will come back if you are consistently yourself for long enough. People will pay it forward to you and it'll all come around.
I think that's huge. Because I just know in my own life that I can feel the difference when I'm being genuine and when I'm being really authentic and really being me. And then, every once in a while, I'll just, find myself in the space of like, this isn't me. It's just weird. Like it feels like there's almost a cloud that's over you at that time. And it's like, oh, this is so not me. This does not feel good. This is not who I am. And it really is like night and day. The difference.
Totally. Well, and I used to show this in my music class all the time. If we look at it from a scientific perspective, what's called sympathetic vibration. So I used to, in class, play the timpani drum. And when you hit the timpani drum, it'll sing back to you because it's a pitched drum. Mm-hmm. Well, if you sing to the timpani, the note that it is tuned at, it will sing back to you. You do this with a piano too, if you take the damper pedal off the piano, right? So when you are vibrating who you are, yourself, that vibration then resonates back to you. But if you're being like this weird, ugly note, right? Like nothing happens. People are it's the equivalent as like the timpani drum is just going to be like, I'm not going to sing back to you because it's not vibrating back. And people look at you like, that's kind of weird. Why is that? And, again, not to go back to politics, but I think it happens a lot in politics where you can kind of tell the ones who become the most successful are either the best at pretending, because you can also fake it. Like you can if you convince yourself. So that's a whole other podcast, whole other topic. But if you are vibrating a certain way and it causes other people to vibrate back with you, that's the secret. That's the secret sauce, period. Now, if you're actually vibrating who you are and all the good stuff, that's even better, I think, because you can do amazing, amazing things for others and for the whole world.
Let's talk about your mission to tackle bullying.
Yeah. I was severely bullied, like I said, all through school. And it was when I was in high school. I almost didn't make it through high school. I seriously considered taking my life. And then I auditioned for the musical. And the director said to me, David, you're super talented. You know that, right? Like, we want you to be the musical director. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but sure. Do I get to sing? Like, yeah, we'll give you a couple songs. For your entertainment, we did Godspell, was my first show. And then in my senior year, I wanted to be in the musical just performing. And they're like, we have a better idea. You're going to write the musical. And I did. So there I was, 19 years old. I was a published Canadian composer. And so it was these amazing teachers who saw a talent in me and they poured into me, they believed in me, and it literally saved my life. And so now I do the same thing. The proceeds from my book, from my speaking engagements, from a lot of the coaching clients that I take on, part of the proceeds go towards Project Being Unapologetic. Last year, we launched the first one. We went to a school outside of Los Angeles, and I basically went in and I did a confidence building workshop, because what teen doesn't need a little bit of extra confidence? And at the end of the day, they get a big surprise, kind of like being punked. And that surprise was a $5,000 check, because I know the impact that an amount of money like that in a music program can make. And one of the reasons I picked this school in particular, the Ayala High School Choir, is because when asked what would they do with money if they had it, they said, we would like to do something that would get us to be more respected. We want to feel more respected on campus, like the football team. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. I can work with that. And so with their $5,000, they commissioned a composer to write 2 pieces for them, which they just world premiered a couple of weeks ago. I watched the world premiere. It was extraordinary. And to see the growth of those kids from a year ago to now is, it's amazing. It doesn't take much to save someone's life, to change the trajectory of someone's life. And so that's what I'm so obsessed with it is, I would like to turn it into a television show. I'm actually meeting with some network executives soon about this, to turn it into this whole idea of like, what if we went in and like found entire communities, young people, build their confidence, and then surprise them with these dreams, these wishes, these like big payouts that to go and lead the next round of leaders in the world.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that so much, because like to the kids, that is such a gift. That is such a gift. And it almost seems like you're there and you're doing your work and you're getting to see like who they are, getting to know them and really understanding who they are. And
Yeah.
then you give them this beautiful present.
Well, and I think the beautiful thing to witness is like I invite them to be who they are. I invite them to declare it. And when you give someone permission and you hold space for someone to be who they are, wow. Like you got to prepare yourself because it's a blow your hair back experience. People just like, they just change instantly in front of your eyes. The pianist in that class, the accompanist, she's been teaching for like 25 years. And she said to me at the end of the workshop, she said, David, I've never seen, so we spent about an hour and a half together for a part of it. She said, I've never seen anyone come into a classroom and be able to change the way they are so fast. And I think that's my gift, just because like I've been through my own journey and I understand how to just, Book of Mormon, turn the light off, turn the light on, and it literally can be a switch if you understand that. But people, how often are you invited to just be who you are, to say what you really think, to get a little crazy, to just be you? And that's what I do. I invite people to be themselves and to declare it and to be proud about it and to be celebrated for it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, people actually like me when I'm like this. Oh, okay. I'm going to do this more often. And that really is at the core of the whole project and why I love doing what I do. It changed my life. It saved my life. Everything changed because of it.
So we've talked about it a little bit, but I really want to ask directly, like, what is that, like the specific process that you take those kids through? Like, what do you say in that hour and a half to create that beautiful change?
I always say people don't hear what you say. They hear and take action and are transformed by who you are being. Again, go back to the Moseses of the world, the Jesuses of the world, the Mother Teresas. Yeah, they said some really cool stuff. And like it's who they were that lives on. And so it's my way of being, really, that is the magic sauce. What I ask them to do is to imagine if they could. So I play around with different words, and I ask them to declare what is your unpersonality? Are you willing to be unapologetic? Are you willing to be unmessable? Maybe you're unreasonable. Maybe you're unstoppable. Maybe you're undefinable. People come up with all sorts of amazing words, and I get them to declare it. I am a unicorn, if that's what they want to choose, right? And then everybody celebrates them. So here's the other thing. This is the key. And this is why I'm starting this whole thing, 122 Days of Celebration. Life begins with celebration. It's the opening line of my book. In some form or another, no matter what, someone is celebrating you at the moment of your birth. Okay. Why then would that have to change? Also, and I always say this, it's over my dead body that you would exit this world without the same standing ovation you arrived with. Now, what would happen if you started getting used to getting standing ovations for just being you? And that's what I do. I give people the opportunity to be celebrated and to have a standing ovation for just being themselves. It changes you. I forget the name of the guy. I have to look him up. There's a guy who speaks, but he doesn't actually say anything. He goes out on stage and he stands for an hour looking at the audience. That's all he does. He looks at them. And the reaction, I don't know if you've seen this, the reaction of the audience, people are weeping. It's like a religious outer body experience. People, and what they say is, I feel seen. I feel understood. He doesn't say anything. He stands there and he looks into your eyes. It's amazing, right? We don't have to say much to change someone's life, to change their experience of themselves. And so that really is what I'm on a mission to do, is just to let people know, is like, hey, you're a miracle. Whatever you want to call that, you are a miracle. Let me celebrate you for that. And I want you to get used to accepting applause, accepting the Academy Award, thanking those people, having gratitude, because it changes everything. It changes your vibration and it changes everyone around you. Your dogs
Dude.
might love you more too.
Shout out to Toby.
Right?
Dude, you're awesome. Let me just
Thank
throw
you.
that out there.
So are you. Thank you.
I I love that the conversation went here because this is something that I feel like I have struggled with in my life. You know, I think back to high school, and you know, I loved almost everything about it, right? Like I loved playing sports, and I loved you know, schoolwork. I'm a huge nerd, and I say that lovingly. Like I love reading, and you know, I love the math club and the mock trial club, and you know, all of this stuff. And I loved all the other students. I like we had a really small class, and like every single one of them I really did love fully. And I still felt this piece of like I'm not being fully authentic because I also loved video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would do everything, you know, for school. Like I would take care of my homework and take, you know, talk to my friends and do my sports and hang out with all the, and then I would go home and like, you know, after everything else was done, I felt like I would have to like go in hiding and then like play my video game, you know, and it was just, it was something that I never felt comfortable being totally transparent about, except with like a few friends. And like I think back on it, it's like you wasted so much energy feeling weird about that. Like
Right.
so many people play video games, first of all, so who cares? And second of all, if that's what I like to do, then that's what I like to do.
Right.
But it just like it made me think a lot about that. And and also in college too. You know, I was for a while, for a couple years, I was actually part of a fraternity. And I it wasn't the right move for me. I ended up quitting because I really didn't agree with a lot of the things that that organization stood for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even during that time, I remember I would be in my room and I would be either writing a book or filming a podcast episode or doing something that was really meaningful to me. And they would be, you know, they would come in and like, you know, with the beer or, you know, whatever, you know, whatever was going on at the time. And then I almost felt like I had to kind of tailor my reaction to them instead of just being like, hey, that's fucking stupid. Like, I don't want to do that. Like that, I don't care. I don't want to go to a bar. That's not what I like. I don't enjoy that. I want to sit here and I want to create because that's what I love. And if you want to do that, then awesome. Let's hang out. Like, let's create together. But if you want to if you want to go to a bar, that's just not me. Like, and there's nothing wrong with going to a bar.
Right.
Like anybody
100%.
can do whatever they want. Full
Yep.
respect to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I wanted at all. And like, I had to really reconcile that with myself. So I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, and it's important. And I think when you do take a stand for things like that, when you are able to, then it empowers other people to be like, you know what? I want to hang out with Ben too. I want to create. I want to do something cool. I want to play video games, whatever it is, right? Because I was like you, I didn't really want to hang out at the pubs and the bar. It just wasn't for me. But as you know, I'm sure like we could easily hang out, right? Like it's part of the culture. Most people, like we're not normal, right? That's what we tell ourselves because most people like to go out and have a drink and whatever. And I'm like, nothing excites me less. So I let my husband go hang out with his friends and they have a drink or whatever. I'm like, it's just not for me, you know, but I'm gonna like, you can go and do that. Great. But I don't want to feel obligated because the whole time that I'm sitting there, I'm miserable. My energy is going to be like, not great. Right. So no one's going to benefit out of that. And why am I going to waste my time pretending? So I'm going to sit, read a book while you're out there having a drink. And that's great. Go enjoy yourself. If that's how you enjoy yourself, wonderful. Let me enjoy myself the way I want to enjoy myself too. It's so important to be able to respect and celebrate other people for their differences. And yeah.
I love that. So when it comes to the celebration, I think this is very important. How do you make sure to build a routine or a ritual or a habit of celebration? Like, how do you infuse that into your life?
It's a choice, and you have to, you choose to make it part of your routine. I mean, And when you look at, like, any given person looks at their routine, there's probably a lot of ridiculous time wasting things that are included in your routine. And you just have to ask yourself, well, what do I want to do in this life? Because, they have actually done, I just saw this study recently. People who are really successful don't watch a lot of TV. They just don't. In fact, the more TV you watch, the less money you make. They've actually run this study to show that. Okay, so, like, can you change your routine from watching TV, for example, just an example, to celebrating yourself, working out? So I wake up every day. I have a little rebounder trampoline. I bounce on my trampoline while I listen to some Katy Perry, Unapologetic. And I imagine, I set out my goals. What am I doing? Where am I going? What's it going to feel like when I get there? That's part of my routine. It's like the 10 best minutes of my day. Then I set my alarm for between calls and recordings and stuff like that. And every time my alarm goes off, I recite my contract. I'm an unapologetic, joyfully audacious, unmessable, and profitable speaker, leader, husband, whatever the case may be. And I shake my butt. I shake my ass, literally. Why? Okay, so Joseph McClendon, one of Tony Robbins' top trainers, talks about attitude. And he says, it's impossible not to change your state when you, like, shake your hips, move your hips around. Like, literally, you could try. You could be in the worst mood and you shake your butt and you'll be in a better mood instantly. There's something physiological about it. So when you have to mini celebrate, it's just part of my routine. I'm like, I say my contract and I shake my ass. I'm like, okay, that's something good that happened. It's something that I'm actually working to install better into my routine. What would change for you if you walked through every door? And I learned this from Joseph McClendon also. Walk through every door like a rock star. Every door, into your bathroom, out of the bathroom, out of your house, at the Target, at the Walmart, at whatever, at your local eatery. You walked in like you were literally Bon Jovi, Cher, whoever. You pick your rock star of choice, right? And you accept, and you're like, I'm here. Like, your way of being, right?
I have arrived.
Yeah. What would change for you?
That's awesome.
And so it's just little things. And these don't even take time, really. Like, my bouncing takes 10 minutes, but 10 minutes, I mean, whatever, these are just little things that you build in because you're doing all sorts of other things. But again, it's a choice. And a lot of people choose not to because, as you know, there's not going to be some big life-changing aha moment. Angels aren't going to sing. There's not going to be you're not going to start getting checks in the mail all of a sudden. But do it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. Everything is going to change. But you won't necessarily see the result right away. And you have to be okay with not seeing the result right away. You have to plant the seed, and you have to water it, and you have to wait, and you have to weed it, and you have to, like, go and talk to the plant, the vineyards that play Mozart to their grapes, grow better grapes. Why? We don't know. It works. You got to tend to it. And then eventually you'll be able to harvest it. It doesn't happen overnight. Well, a friend of mine says, people who want to experience success real fast, like, were you born in 9 minutes, 9 weeks, 9 months? Like, are you willing to put in 9 months of celebration, of shaking your ass, even one thing, and see how that changes for you? But if you're only willing to do it for 9 days or, and you don't see a change, well, come on. Like, let's be serious. It took you 9 months to be created. So,
I love that. I love that idea. And I love the idea of incremental improvement because if you can get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better over time, that compounds on itself. And I actually, a couple days ago, and it's probably almost a week now ago, but I literally had this idea in my head and I could not go to sleep. I literally stayed up until 5:30 a.m. because I could not shake this thought. But I think one of the fundamental reasons why people give up is that when they start, they don't know where they are. They don't have a clear picture of where they are, right? So let's say they're at 1% now. And in 3 months, they're now at 10%. But the person that they're aspiring to be like is at 90%. So they don't see the fact that they jumped up from 1 to 10%. They just see that, wow, I was never at 90% and I'm still never there. And so,
they get hitched, right? Because it's like, I'm not there. There's nothing to celebrate. So God, I'm not there. So yeah, but how about you celebrate the fact that the gap is closing?
Exactly.
Or, I had a friend one day and he said to me, he's like, oh, I'm so mad. Like I took on a coaching client and I charged him $200 a month. And I said, are you celebrating? And he's like, oh, I can't believe you said that to me. No, I'm not celebrating. Like, this is garbage. I said, yeah, what did you do? He's like, I threw the phone across it. And I said, are you ever going to take on another client at $200 a month? He's like, hell no. I feel like worthless. I said, great. Are you celebrating that you're never going to do that again to yourself? He's like, David, you always have the right thing to say. You're welcome. Celebrate that, right? So it's celebrating closing the gap. But it might be 1% at a time. Like you can't drive across the country in 5 minutes. It just doesn't, same thing, right? Like, but we don't celebrate the little incremental things. And I think if we focus on, did I get 0.5% closer? And even if I got 1% further away, but if you understand why
learning,
I gained weight today. Well, I had a whoopie pie. My husband loves to make whoopie pie. So this is a real example right now. I had to say no to the whoopie pies last night. I'm like, no, Heath, I don't want a whoopie pie. And I stepped on the scale today and I lost some weight. I'm like, that's why I said no to the whoopie pie. Right. But it's this, and weight is such a great example because there's so many people who struggle, right, with either gaining or losing or whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's incremental, and it does take work. Are you willing to work for it, or do you want to just waste your time on something else?
I agree. And where I really think that like a struggle that is not talked about enough is identifying, okay, well, where did you start and where are you now? Like, what actually is the progress? Because it's easy to say, okay, well, if you're here, if you're at 1% and you make it to 5%, you should definitely celebrate that. I agree 100%. And I think not enough people do that. But I also think it's difficult for a lot of people, including myself, to understand like, okay, where exactly are you? It's not like we can press, and I'm relating this back to video games because, I played a lot of video games in my life. Sure. So it's not like you can just press C and see your character stats. Like you can't just you don't have this internal thing where you're like, oh, I'm at 47% vegetables today. Maybe I should go eat a carrot. You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to identify that. And so to not only identify where you are, but to see any sort of progress or regression that you've made, and then, to be able to compare that to, to where you want to go, or exactly. That I think is such a problem.
That's why you have to be able to set goals that are measurable. Like people set these goals like, I'm going to be successful. And I'm like, no, you're not. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
How are you going to be successful? Like exactly. What do you want? What does success mean to you? You want to have $1 million in your bank account? Because that's very different than being successful in the music industry or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of successful people who don't have a lot of money, but it's your definition, right? But if you can't measure it, it's not like, are you kidding me? And I think video games is perfect. Like I actually had never heard that analogy before. It's like nowadays we do have the luxury of being able to sort of video game our lives because, I have my little MyFitnessPal app or whatever. I'm not endorsing it or whatever, but you know what I'm saying is like, you can actually track every single thing that you put in your body. And it tells you, and it reminds you, it's like, David, you're getting close to your fat content for today. Are you sure you want to have that whoopie pie? Like, I'm like, excuse me, but that's my decision to I want to lose this much weight in this much time because I want to look good for the summer. So I'm measuring it now, but are you willing to measure it? Or are you just going to put it out there and just hope something's going to happen? Yeah, maybe it can happen for some people that way, but you got to be able to measure it so that you can celebrate the little goals. And then I know if I step on the scale tomorrow because I have 3 whoopie pies today and I've gained 0.5 pound, I'm like, I have data. Like, I don't have to be mad at myself. I'm like, okay, I understand. I cannot eat the whoopie pies. It's so easy, and then you can just celebrate. Because that's why I say when people look at me weird when I say, you got to celebrate the bad things. Yeah, celebrate the fact that you've stepped on the scale and you've gained weight if you understand. Because then you just ask, well, why did I gain weight? Okay, here. If you don't know, find out. Ask. I was making the biggest mistake. I had no idea. I hate it. So phys ed was traumatizing for me in high school. Hated it. Anyway, I had no idea that you were supposed to drink your protein shake after you work out. So I was drinking a protein shake before I worked out and I was gaining weight. And I was like, what on earth is happening to me here? And then I finally, it was actually a Lyft driver of all people. It came up in conversation and she's like, dude, you have to drink your protein shake after you work out, not before. And I'm like, oh my God. I know. So now I can celebrate that, right? And be like, okay, I understand. I got the knowledge that I need. So yeah.
That's awesome. You know, it's funny you say you used to drink the protein before. There's, you know, that cheese that's like I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like the cheese that comes in the red wax and you have to like take the wax off.
Baby Bell.
So yeah, Baby Bell. Exactly. So when I was younger, like in high school, right? And shout out, you know, because I'd always bring my lunch and, you know, shout out to my mom. She would help me make my lunch. And I'm very grateful for that. But she would, you know, a lot of times she would put in the Bluebell cheese. And I didn't realize that this is so embarrassing, but I think it's so funny. So I'm going to say it anyways. I didn't realize that the red stuff was wax. So I took the little paper off and then I ate the whole thing. And I was like, this is really weird tasting cheese. And one day, like I'm in my home and my mom sees me doing that. She's like, are you eating wax right now? And I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom? I'm just eating this cheese. And she's like, the red stuff is not cheese. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
I know, but I get it, right? Because there's a container and then there's another container. I'm like, why is this double wrapped? Why? You know, yeah.
But that was such like this cheese is not weird. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. But a lot of us go through life just not knowing, like, why is my studio not successful? Why is my business not built? Because we don't tell everyone what we're up to and we don't even give anyone a chance to give us like real expert advice. Now, find experts. Don't take advice just from anybody, you know?
Right.
But yeah, if your mom was an expert on the Baby Bell cheese and she told you, like, no, you probably don't want to eat that. You know? So there you go.
Exactly. So we talked a little bit about connection earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in learning what your philosophy is on truly developing deep, meaningful, and genuine connection with another human being.
It all comes down to being unapologetic and being who you are. You want to develop connection with someone, you have to vibrate at the level of deep connection with yourself. And if you are being who you are and honest and true and open, then it will resonate back. If you're resonating like, I want something from someone, or you're not being yourself or what, it's just, people know. They might not be able to put their finger on it. You might have relationships for, you know, to a certain level for a certain time, but you'll never go the full distance. You'll never really attract the deep relationships that you want. It's just so simple. Just be who you want to be, who you want other people to be for you. Be that person, and it all just unfolds beautifully.
What's your greatest theory?
My greatest theory is you are ready now. Like, you arrived in this world as a miracle. What are you waiting for? Stop looking for it. You came into the world with it. The X factor, you have it. It's not just for people on American Idol. You have it. When are you going to start to like show it? And when you show up, the real X factor of great performers, presenters, speakers, leaders that I've met in the last 26, 27 years of working with them is way of being. A musical theater performer creates standing ovations while they're singing gibberish lyrics, because lyrics make no sense, because of their way of being. You already have the X factor. Start showing it.
I think that's powerful. I really think that's powerful. And I think we've really had a very consistent message throughout this whole interview. And I think that it's just a testament to, like, no matter which way you slice the whoopie pie, it all comes down to this at the end.
Talking about consistency. I might have to have a whoopie pie after this. But you're right. And that's the other thing too, is like, why am I gaining traction in my business and my life and everything, because I am obsessed and I am consistent. You can ask me 15 different questions and I can give you the same answer for all of them. And I don't feel like I'm giving you the same answer because I'm like, because this is it. I don't need to make something up for you. I don't need to be inauthentic. I'm like, look, it's simple. It's this. Again, go back to Jesus. Love, 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 love. He wasn't like, oh God, here I'm going to go give the same answer again. Let me wrap it up into another story and give you the same, punchline. There's no other thing. Love. That was his thing. Elon Musk, Mars, smart, what, innovation is his thing, right? Like, great. So what do you want to get obsessed about? Start now, because the clock is ticking.
So I want to thank you very, very much for coming on the show today and sharing this time with me. It's been very special.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I feel the same. Thank you for taking the time and for asking such thoughtful questions. And I hope that you will continue to do what you do and empower other people to be themselves. Thank you for the service that you give to the world.
Thank you. Thank you. And, I just have 2 more questions for you. Then we'll wrap it on up.
Awesome.
Is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that we did not talk about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Gosh, we've covered it all. Is there anything else? I mean, honestly, being unapologetic is my life's work. And the essence of, giving other people permission to be unapologetic, like I'm obsessed with allowing other people to step into that space. And so this isn't the David show. This isn't, I don't plug being unapologetic because I'm going to, you don't make a ton of money on a book anyway. But the transformation that other people get and the amazing people that I get to hang out with that's the real blessing. That's the real miracle.
What question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Oh, that's a good one. Ben, you may have stumped me. What question should you be asking me? Well, I think, okay, so people should just ask me this. It's like, David, what's the secret? What is that X factor? What is how do you go through all the things that you go through and still are kind and generous and want to do what you do? How do you do it? And my answer would be by being unapologetically me, period. There is no formula, blueprint, system out there that works better than the one that you showed up with already. So start optimizing that system, and everything will work for you.
Well, thank you very, very much, David, again, for coming on the show today. And again, sharing this time with me. It's been very, very special and very meaningful. So I just want to say thank you again.
And go onward out there and be unapologetically you.
To everybody who's watching, listening, I want to thank y'all too. Your time is very valuable, and I'm very grateful that you would choose to share it with us today. So thank you. I love you, and I will see you on the next episode.